University of Massachusetts Amherst is located in Amherst, Massachusetts, which is a small college town in the western part of Massachusetts. So usually when we talk about Massachusetts, many people have heard of Boston, but UMass is actually about 2 hours away from Boston in more of a countryside area. And we have about 22,000 undergraduate students and 6,000 graduate students. So as I mentioned, we're about 2 hours away from Boston here in the western part of the state, which is, beautiful scenery. Right now is one of our most beautiful times with fall foliage. We have a little town center, and UMass doubles the size of the town when the UMass students come back. So we really are a small town feel. And as you can see, we are a short trip to New York City, about 3 hours, and a short flight to Washington, D.C. You can't see it on this map, but we are also relatively close, 5 to 6 hours away from Montreal. So UMass Amherst is the Commonwealth's flagship campus. And so what that basically means is that UMass Amherst is part of the University of Massachusetts system. So there are actually 5 UMasses. There's a UMass Boston, UMass Lowell, UMass Dartmouth. But UMass Amherst is the flagship, which means we receive the most research funding. And when people say UMass, typically they're talking about UMass Amherst. So this year, UMass Amherst is ranked number 26 among public universities and 66 overall by the US News and World Report. So we're a relatively highly ranked institution, and many, especially in Massachusetts, have heard of UMass or attended UMass. One thing that UMass is really well known for is our research. So at UMass Amherst, all of our faculty are conducting research at a given time. So that means that there are lots of opportunities for undergraduate and graduate students to engage in research on campus. And then sometimes when they get practice on campus, they can do off-campus research while they're an undergraduate, which is great, or be published in papers. And in the past couple of years, we've gotten lots of research funding. And in 2017, we got over $200 million of research funding. And we were ranked number 4 in terms of institutions that get research funding in the state of Massachusetts. So we were after Harvard, MIT, and BU. We have absolutely fabulous academics at UMass and so many opportunities because we are a larger institution. So we have 10 schools and colleges, which is a little bit confusing to explain, but it's not confusing once you get to UMass, but it's confusing on the front end. But so basically UMass Amherst is an umbrella organization. And within UMass, there are 10 smaller entities, which are called schools or colleges. Some are called schools, some are called colleges, but they're the same thing. So when you come to the University of Massachusetts Amherst, you'll join one of our schools or colleges. So some examples are, one college is Humanities and Fine Arts. One is our College of Natural Sciences. So that would be biology, chemistry, etc. We have a College of Information and Computer Science. So there are 10 of those. And so you can come and you can study within one of those. So you'd study at UMass, and then the next level would be within a school or college. And then the next level would be your major. So you'd come into UMass Amherst with a major already chosen, although you can, of course, change your major once you get here. We have more than 100 majors that students can choose from. And then once they get here, they can, have a major and a minor, have a double major, that kind of thing. There's lots of opportunities for majors and minors, and you don't have to major and minor within the same subject area or anything. You don't have to, if you want to major in biology, you could minor in dance, no problem. And then we also have lots of study abroad and domestic exchange programs. So we have about 400 programs that students can choose from, and they would be in all 7 continents. So you have lots of opportunities to study abroad or study here at a different university. UMass has brilliant professors. So we have about 1,300 full-time instructional faculty. 93% hold the highest degree in their field. We have an 18-to-1 student to faculty ratio, and 70% of our classes have less than 30 students. So at a larger university like UMass Amherst, sometimes students will sort of want to know, will I be overwhelmed with the number of students in my class? Will I feel like I don't have a close connection with my professors? But I think that UMass really does a good job of facilitating relationships between students and faculty. And so frequently, students will be in larger classes during their freshman and sophomore years. In intro level courses, you might be in a larger class. Like a good example of that would be psychology. Psychology is our most popular major at UMass Amherst. And so some of the intro to psychology classes have lots and lots of students. So those would be larger classes. Those classes would be broken down and you'd meet with a TA in a small group once or twice a week. So it would be a large class feel, but you'd also get a small group feel at the same time. And then if you were a psychology major and you got up to, your junior year or your senior year, then you might be in smaller seminar courses with, 5, 10, 15 students. So even within the same major, sometimes it's hard to say what the average class size might be. But as a general rule, I'd say, yes, as a freshman, your classes might be larger than they are when you're a senior. And then it really depends on the major as well, because if you are studying something that's more unique of a major, you might be in classes, really small classes for the whole time. Like if you're studying classics or if you're studying linguistics or something like that, all your classes might be small, even from the time you're a freshman. UMass Amherst is a member of a 5-college consortium. And what that means is that we have 4 colleges that are very close by to UMass Amherst, and you can take courses as a UMass student at any of the 5 colleges. So I'll go through these colleges a little bit. Amherst College is the closest college to UMass in proximity. It's about 5 minutes away. By bus. There's a free bus system called the PVTA that connects all 5 schools. So it's super easy to get from UMass to any of the other schools. So Amherst College is a top co-ed liberal arts college right in the center of the town of Amherst. Really easy to get there from UMass and really cool to take a liberal arts type class as a UMass student. Hampshire College is about 10 minutes away from UMass, and it's a very non-traditional school. So lots of students study things like film and agriculture. And at Hampshire College, there are no grades and there are no majors. So again, it's a very unique experience for UMass Amherst students to take a class at a place like Hampshire College. And then the other schools within the 5-college consortium are Mount Holyoke and Smith colleges. Mount Holyoke and Smith are members of the 7 sister schools. So a long time ago when the Ivy Leagues, Harvard, Princeton, Yale in the US were all male institutions, they had sister schools that were all female institutions that went along with them. And now, of course, the Ivy League schools are co-ed, but 5 of the 7 sisters are still just for women. So as a UMass Amherst student, you can take classes at any of these schools. You can join clubs at any of the schools within the 5-college consortium. You can go to sporting events. You can use their libraries. There are basically limitless options because you're a member of the 5-college consortium. I always think that UMass Amherst itself has limitless options, but then when you add all of the opportunities available at the other 4 schools, there's just so much going on, and we're such a student-centered community. And as I mentioned before, you can easily get to any of the campuses through our free bus system. And you can take up to 2 classes per semester at any of the other schools. So for example, if you're a UMass student, you can take one class at Amherst and one class at Smith, for example. And then you'd gain that credit back to UMass, and you'd still be able to graduate on time. You'd pay the same as you would for a UMass class, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very easy process. UMass Amherst is extremely devoted to diversity. In terms of international students, we are about 10% international students from over 70 countries. And we have lots of different cultural organizations on campus, and we have lots of services for our international students. We have an international programs office that can help our students with visa issues once they get to campus, and acclimating to campus. And if you have any questions, I can help to get you in touch with our international programs office. Outside academics, we have over 250 registered student organizations, which is our term for clubs. So we have all the typical clubs. We have debate, we have Model UN, we have lots of different academic clubs. So for example, if you're interested in business, you could be in our Women in Business Club or something like that. But then we have some more unique clubs at UMass too. For example, we have a squirrel watching club. So if you've ever thought that you should be spending your time watching squirrels, UMass is a place that you can come to do that for sure. And then we have 21 Division I sports teams at UMass. And I know that many of you on this call are athletes. So if you have any questions, you can always email me directly, and I can help to put you in touch with Craig, who in our office handles eligibility, etc. Living at UMass. So at UMass, all of our first year students, so all freshmen, are required to live on campus. And most students live on campus for their sophomore year too, but they're not required to. But basically 100% of our freshmen live on campus, about 75% of our sophomores live on campus, about 50% of our juniors, and about 25% of our seniors. And we have a bunch of large residential areas on campus. And so when you get admitted to UMass, you might take a look online at what building will be closer to most of your academic classes, because most of our majors have a specific building where many of the classes will be held. And oftentimes students will try to live near where their classes might be held. If you are interested in athletics or playing a sport, you may also decide to live in a residence hall that's close to, the field or the court that you'll be practicing on or using the most. One cool thing that UMass Amherst has is something called the Residential Academic Program. And so what that means, it's also called a RAP for short. But so our Residential Academic Program is an opportunity for students in their first year, in their freshman year, to take a class in their residence hall. So, for example, if you're interested in politics, you want your major to be political science, there might be a RAP called Current Events. And so everyone who's interested in current events and signs up for the RAP would be placed in the same residence hall, and then you'd all take a class on current events together within that residence hall. So the professor would actually come to a classroom that's within your residence hall. And why we recommend this is because it's a really great way to meet people within your residence hall right when you get to UMass. And so a lot of times when I speak to students, they say they met their best friends for their entire UMass career during their RAP at the beginning of their freshman year. So if you do come to UMass, I highly recommend signing up for a RAP. And that sometimes helps you figure out where you're going to live too, because you might say, oh, there's this RAP that I really, really want, and it's held in Butterfield. That's the name of this residence hall in the picture. So that would mean that you live there. Extraordinary food. So UMass Amherst is really excited about our food within our campus dining. For the past 5 years, we've been rated #1 for campus dining every single year. We have all different types of international cuisine. We have kosher food, halal food, vegan, gluten-free, vegetarian. We have so many options. You name it, we have it. We also have 24-hour dining options, so you will not be hungry if you come to UMass Amherst. And then one thing that we feel especially proud of is that we can have freshly rolled sushi. There's freshly rolled sushi at UMass 24 hours a day. So if you ever have a hankering for sushi, you can always get it. In fact, we have one of our student clubs. They had to think of a chant that they would scream at like this UMass competition, and they decided on sushi 24 hours a day. So if you're a sushi lover, you should consider UMass for sure. We are located in a fantastic college town. I'm very biased because I've lived in Amherst for my entire life, but I find it to be pretty much idyllic. We have 4 beautiful seasons. You know, we have a delightful spring and fall that's really beautiful. We have a relatively cold winter, but you know, all of our buildings are heated and it's beautiful. You can go around and, you know, like have hot chocolate, and it's very quintessential New England. And then in the summer, you likely won't be on campus, but summer is pretty mild generally in Massachusetts. So it'll be hot, but not too hot, like other parts of the United States. But within Amherst, we have lots of hiking opportunities. You can see some small mountains in the background of this photo. We have biking, museums. We have lots of music and theater. So I always think of like the eastern part of Massachusetts as being the business capital, and the western part of Massachusetts as being sort of like the arts capital. You'll find that many famous poets and artists live in western Massachusetts. So it's sort of a very serene place to get your college education. And we have a rich history. We have a big emphasis on local food and farms. So you'll actually find that much of the food in our dining commons comes from the local area as well. In terms of our application requirements, we are on the Common Application, like many other schools. So you just fill out one common application and you send it to all the schools that you're interested in applying to that are on the Common App. We have an early action deadline and a regular decision deadline. Early action is at the beginning of November and regular decision is January 15th. In terms of early action, we typically recommend that if you are able, you apply early action, just because statistically, you have a higher chance of getting in if you apply early. Not that any major will fill up, but you know, I feel like it just gets slightly tighter by the time you get to regular decision. So the only reason I would recommend applying regular decision is if your grades need a little bit of work and you're depending on your GPA to be slightly higher from fabulous senior grades. Oftentimes we don't have any senior grades if you apply early action. And so we would use your freshman grades, sophomore grades, and junior grades, but we wouldn't have your senior grades in order to calculate your GPA. So that would be the only reason I'd say apply regular decision. We have an application fee of $80. We look at your official transcripts or certificates from 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grades, and 12th grade if we have it. This past year, because of COVID-19, we have gone SAT optional. So you do not need to submit SAT or ACT scores unless you have them and want to. So you can have them and not submit them. That's totally fine. Not submitting the SAT or ACT to UMass Amherst will not harm you. If you do submit them, then we can evaluate them as a part of your application, but you do not have to submit them, whether you have them or whether you don't, and it will not hurt you if you don't submit them. We also require a letter of recommendation, and if you need to take English language proficiency tests, that would be if English is not your native language, then there are a multitude of options. And we've even opened up the options more because of COVID-19. So you can do the TOEFL, you can do the IELTS. There are a few at-home editions for TOEFL. You can do a Duolingo test at home, or you can do an interview. If English is not your native language, but you have been in all 4 years of high school, in an English-speaking high school, like an American high school or a British curriculum high school, or a Canadian curriculum high school, then you can get a waiver for your English proficiency requirement. And then, of course, there are the requirements that come within the Common App. So the Common App, you'll write an essay. There will be 2 supplemental essays about UMass. One is why UMass, and one is why your major. So for example, if you're interested in computer science, you'd write your why UMass about why you'd like to come to UMass, our beautiful campus, our fantastic food, and then your why your major essay would be about why you love computer science. And I think I already mentioned you write about your extracurricular activities, you have your recommendation letter, and so some of this stuff would be within the Common Application. So just some admissions facts. For our class of 2024, our average GPA was 3.9, and our middle 50% GPA range was 3.7 to 4.2. I want to take one breath here to talk about our GPAing. So at UMass Amherst, we recalculate every single applicant's GPA. And we use our own special method that is given to us by the Massachusetts Board of Higher Education. But the way we calculate GPAs may not be how your high school calculates your GPA or how you imagine that we would calculate a GPA. And it might be confusing to figure out what your GPA is based on your transcripts and what it would be considered at UMass. So if you have any questions about your GPA, please get in touch with me and we can try to figure out what your GPA would be considered at UMass. But I will just tell you that we have a weighted system. So even though our GPA is out of 4.0, you can get a lot of weight. For example, if a student is in an AP curriculum and they get an A in an AP class, that would be considered a 5 out of 4. So you'd get a whole point added in weight. And that goes for, if you're taking an IB class, an HL class, you get a lot of weight added. If you're taking A levels, you get a lot of weight added to your GPA. So don't look at these middle 50% ranges and think, 3.7 to 4.2, I don't have that high of a GPA, because you may have a higher GPA than you think within our GPA system. So last year we had over 42,000 applications for 5,000 seats. And out of those 5,000 seats, about 10% of them were international. So about 500 international students last year. We also have at UMass some majors that are considered more competitive than our other majors. So nursing is our hardest major to get into, and the average GPA is 3.9 to 4.3. Eisenberg School of Management is basically business. So within Eisenberg, we have our finance, accounting, hospitality and tourism management, sports management, and those business type majors. And so the average GPA for our Eisenberg School of Management is 3.8 to 4.2. computer science and engineering are also competitive majors. So one note that I'll give you about UMass is when you apply to UMass, you'll put a first choice major and a second choice major. I recommend that for the first choice major, if you're interested in something competitive, you put the competitive major. And then for your second choice, you put something non-competitive. For example, if you're interested in engineering, then I'd put, mechanical engineering or whatever engineering type you're interested in for your first choice major. And then for your second choice major, I would put something non-competitive but related, put physics as your second choice major. Then once you get to UMass, you can continue doing physics, you can transfer into engineering, or you can discover that you're interested in something totally different. Because so many students at US colleges change their major, I highly recommend, or I personally think, that it's more important to get admitted to UMass than it is to get admitted to the specific major that you're interested in. So I'd say if you're interested in a competitive major, put it as your first choice and put a non-competitive major for your second choice. We already talked a little bit about English language proficiency, but as you can see, the different minimums are listed here for our English language proficiency tests. And you can get a waiver if you've been at a English medium high school for all 4 years of high school. And then in terms of tuition and financial aid, so our tuition is about $36,000 a year, but when you add everything together, like room and board, our health plan, fees, etc., we're about $53,000 a year. We do offer merit awards, no need-based aid, but we do offer merit awards for international students. Those merit awards are between $10,000 and $16,000 a year. There is no separate application process for merit awards. Basically, we just evaluate all the applications and then we award merit to the top applications that we receive. And so if you get the $16,000 award, you can bring down your tuition, room and board to about $35,000 a year. So we typically say that for international students, it's hard to get a deal better than $35,000 a year at UMass. So you really need to budget for $15,000 or for $50,000-ish a year. But if you get the highest award, then it could go down to around $35,000 a year. And then because all of our students are required to live on campus that first year, this really is a good estimate for the first year. But then if you move off campus for later years, then the room and board numbers may shift a little bit if a student plans to cook at home or live in an apartment with friends. In terms of credit, our registrar does offer credit for all different types of exams. So if you're a student that's taken AP exams or IB exams or AS or A-level exams, you can check our registrar's website and see if you'll gain any credit from the exams that you've taken. I have students who've taken, the IB diploma and gained lots of credit and been able to graduate from UMass in 3 years instead of 4 years, for example. So if you have taken any of these curricula, I highly recommend taking a look at our registrar's website to make sure that you can gain credit for the exams that you've taken. Sometimes you can also skip a class as well. So for example, this is just an example, I don't know if it's true. If you take AP Bio, maybe you can start at UMass in the second level of bio as opposed to the first level of bio or something like that. It really depends on which exam you take. And that's that. That's just a short overview about UMass Amherst. If you have any more questions, we're happy to take them over email. You can send me, Maggie, our director, Shui or Meg. Those are our regional representatives, an email through our main email address, which is international@admissions.umass.edu. I look forward to hearing from all of you very soon.